The blue lights spun silent circles against the rain-slicked asphalt outside. Inside, the air crackled, thick with unspoken accusations and the scent of stale coffee. His face, usually so controlled, was a mask of disbelief, his mouth slightly ajar. The two officers stood impassive, flanking the entryway, their uniforms dark against the muted tones of the mistress's living room. My lawyer stood beside me, a calm, steady presence, radiating quiet confidence. And there, on the polished surface of a small side table, lay the bracelet. $300,000 worth of diamonds, catching the dim light, sparkling with an obscene, indifferent brilliance. It wasn't just jewelry. It was years of my work, my success, a gift I'd given myself, a symbol of everything I had built. And he had taken it from my safe, my home, and given it to her. His eyes fixed on the bracelet, then darted to mine. For a split second, I saw the dawning horror, the comprehension of just how badly he had miscalculated. His hand twitched, reaching instinctively, then dropping as one of the officers shifted slightly. The silence stretched, tightening like a noose. Then, one of the officers stepped forward, reaching for the bracelet.
And he screamed.
It wasn't a word, just a raw, guttural sound ripped from his throat, full of shock and fury and absolute, total panic. It echoed in the small space, a sudden, violent disruption of the tense quiet. The mistress, perched on the edge of a sofa like a frightened bird, flinched violently. My lawyer remained perfectly still. And I simply watched as the officer, with measured, careful movements, picked up the bracelet. The diamonds flashed one last time before it was placed gently into a clear plastic bag. My breath hitched, not from sadness, but from a strange, cold satisfaction that settled deep in my chest. It was happening. The trap was sprung. If you've ever felt this kind of cold, quiet rage, this calculated patience waiting for the perfect moment, tell me in the comments. I read all of them. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. It helps me more than you know. Before the screaming, before the blue lights and the sterile plastic bag, there was just
Life.
my life. A life I had built carefully, piece by piece, like constructing a fortress. I was good at building things. My career demanded it, strategy, structure, anticipating every angle. I climbed the corporate ladder with focus and relentless energy, each step earned, each achievement marked. The bracelet was one such marker. Not a gift from him, but a gift to myself after closing the biggest deal of my life. It wasn't just expensive, it represented my independence, my capability, a tangible symbol of my own power. Our marriage felt like another structure I was building. Less steel and glass, more shared moments, quiet evenings, the comfortable rhythm of two lives intertwined. He was charming, successful in his own right, seemed supportive. We had the life people envied, the beautiful home, the easy laughter at dinner parties, the vacations that filled social media feeds with curated happiness. There were moments, looking back now, like faint tremors underfoot that I chose to ignore. A certain evasiveness when asked about his day. Unexplained late nights. A coolness that would sometimes fall between us, brief but palpable. I dismissed them. Stress, I told myself. The pressures of work. My own busy schedule. I built the narrative I wanted to live in. I polished its surfaces until they gleamed, reflecting only the image I wanted to see. The bracelet sat in its velvet box, in the safe hidden behind a painting in my study. It wasn't everyday wear. It was for significant events, moments that called for its specific kind of quiet grandeur. Putting it on felt like donning a certain kind of armor, solid, glittering, a statement of presence. The first crack wasn't dramatic. It was small, insidious. A text message, left open on his tablet. A name I didn't recognize, followed by an emoji I couldn't decipher. Innocuous enough, perhaps. But it felt wrong. A loose thread in the carefully woven fabric. I asked him about it, casual. He brushed it off, someone from work. The explanation was smooth, too smooth. I let it go. Another tremor ignored. Then came the credit card statement. Expenses I couldn't account for. High-end restaurants in parts of the city he rarely visited for work. A weekend trip billed to a boutique hotel far from any supposed business trip location. Each line item felt like a physical blow, a confirmation of the unease that had been festering. I confronted him properly this time. Not with a question, but with the statement laid bare on the kitchen counter, the damning lines highlighted. The smooth charm evaporated, replaced by defensiveness, then anger. Accusations turned back on me. I was snooping, I was paranoid, I was too focused on work. He twisted the narrative, tried to make my discovery the problem, not his actions. It was a masterclass in deflection, but I wasn't buying it anymore. The fabric wasn't just loose, it was slur open. The admission, when it finally came, was less a confession and more a weary capitulation. Yes, there was someone. It had been going on for a while. He offered the usual pathetic excuses. He was unhappy. He felt neglected. She understood him. The words were meaningless noise against the sound of my world shattering. The foundation I thought was solid crumbled into dust. The divorce proceedings began. The initial shock gave way to a cold, hard resolve. I would get through this. I would protect what was mine. But he didn't make it easy. The man I had shared my life with transformed into an adversary, guided by avarice and spite. He started hiding assets, underreporting income, making lowball offers that were frankly insulting. Our beautiful home became a battleground, every shared object now a point of contention. And then I noticed the bracelet was gone. The safe was undisturbed. No signs of forced entry. Only he and I knew the combination. My blood ran cold. I checked again, frantically. The velvet box was empty. I called him. My voice was shaking, not with grief this time, but with a white-hot rage. "Where is it?" I demanded. He hesitated. A long, pregnant pause. Then, his voice flat, devoid of remorse, he said, "It's not your concern anymore." My stomach plummeted. Not my concern? It was my property. My achievement. My $300,000 bracelet. The implication hung heavy in the air. He had taken it. And I knew, with a sickening certainty, who he had given it to. The Mistress. He had taken the symbol of my success, my independence, and given it to the woman he was leaving me for. It wasn't just theft. It was a deliberate act of psychological warfare, a final, brutal assertion of control. It was designed to hurt me in the deepest way possible. To strip me of my symbols of power, to rub his betrayal in my face with glittering, expensive evidence. The anger boiled over, mixed with a profound sense of violation. How dare he? How dare he take something so personal, something that represented me, and hand it over as a trinket to her? It wasn't just the money, though that was significant. It was the profound disrespect, the ultimate act of dehumanization. I was reduced to someone whose most prized possession could be casually gifted to a mistress. I told my lawyer. He was calm, but I saw the flicker of concern in his eyes. Tangible assets hidden are one thing. A specific, high-value personal item given away? That complicates things. It raised questions of dissipation of marital assets, yes, but also potentially theft, depending on how it was legally classified and when exactly it was taken. We started asking questions. Subpoenaing records. His financial trails were muddied, but he wasn't as clever as he thought. We found evidence of expensive gifts purchased for the mistress, jewelry, designer bags. But the bracelet was different. It was my bracelet. It wasn't something he had bought for her. It was something he had stolen for me to give to her. He denied giving it to her explicitly in legal filings, instead claiming it was community property he had moved. A pathetic lie. He knew, and I knew, exactly where it was. The sheer audacity of his denial fueled my fire. He thought he could take what was mine, parade it in front of me via her, and simply lie his way out of it in court. He thought he had won that specific battle. The legal battles intensified. Every motion was a fight. Every discovery request met with resistance. He was relentless, clearly advised by his own lawyer to make this as difficult and expensive as possible for me. Doubt began to creep in. The system felt slow, impersonal. Could I prove he gave it to her? Even if I could, would the court simply factor its value into the settlement, allowing her to keep my bracelet while I received a fraction of its value in assets? The thought was unbearable. Seeing her, even in photographs online, wearing other expensive gifts he'd bought her, knowing she might be wearing my bracelet, was a constant, low-grade torment. It wasn't jealousy. It was a cold, pure hatred for what they had done. They had colluded, in my eyes, to steal from me, to diminish me. It felt like they were mocking me with its sparkle. My resources were being drained. The emotional toll was immense. There were days I wanted to just walk away, to cut my losses, to stop the bleeding. Let him have it, let her have it, just be free of this toxic entanglement. The crisis deepened, threatening to swallow me whole. The fortress I thought I had built around myself felt fragile, its walls crumbling under the relentless assault. Sleep offered little respite, filled with dreams of chasing glittering diamonds I could never catch. Hope seemed like a distant, unreachable shore. One evening, staring out the window at the city lights, I felt a shift. Not a sudden revelation, but a slow, hardening resolve. This wasn't just about money anymore. It wasn't even just about revenge. It was about reclaiming something fundamental that they had tried to steal: my dignity, my agency, the right to possess what was rightfully mine. They had used my own symbol of strength as a weapon against me. I needed to turn that weapon back. I called my lawyer. My voice was different. Calmer, colder, stripped of the raw emotion that had dominated our previous conversations. "We need to change tactics," I said. He listened patiently as I laid out my thinking. We weren't just dealing with a divorce asset anymore. We were dealing with stolen property. Property that could potentially be traced, recovered, and used as powerful evidence not just of asset dissipation, but of intent, deceit, and potentially, depending on the jurisdiction and precise circumstances, something more serious. If he took it from my safe without my permission, I explained, feeling the legal gears turn in my mind, the strategic part of me awakening from its grief-induced stupor, and gave it to her. That's theft, isn't it? Or conversion. It wasn't community property he decided to sell. It was my specific, premarital or gifted property he took from my personal safe. It wasn't a gift to the marriage. It was my gift to myself. My lawyer leaned back in his chair, stroking his chin. The wheels were turning for him, too. The legal nuances were complex, of course, but the core idea resonated. If we could frame this not just as a marital asset dispute, but as a potential civil claim for theft or conversion, or even use it as powerful evidence of fraudulent conduct within the divorce, it changed everything. It raised the stakes dramatically. It wasn't just about arguing value in court. It was about proving a specific, wrongful act. The key, I realized, wasn't just getting the value of the bracelet factored into the divorce settlement. The key was getting the bracelet itself back. And not just getting it back, but getting it back in a way that legally documented his actions and blindsided him completely. He thought he had put it beyond my reach, a glittering symbol of his triumph and my loss, safely on the wrist of his new lover. He wouldn't expect the law itself, in its most physical form, to come knocking to retrieve it. We started building that case, quietly, meticulously. It required detailed documentation, proving the bracelet was mine before the marriage or given to me personally, proving its provenance and value, establishing the timeline of its disappearance, gathering any scrap of evidence, emails, texts, witness statements if possible, that pointed to him taking it and giving it to her. It was slow, painstaking work. We had to be certain before making our move. A false step could jeopardize everything. We explored different legal avenues, a separate civil action for conversion, incorporating it into the divorce proceedings as evidence of fraudulent conveyance and dissipation, possibly even involving law enforcement if the elements of theft could be established strongly enough. The last option felt the most potent, the most disruptive to his smug sense of security. Using the police wasn't about criminal charges, though that possibility might exist depending on specifics, but about the legal mechanism of retrieval. A court order enforced by law enforcement to recover specific property held by a third party. That was the key. That would make it real, undeniable, and public in a way a civil summons wouldn't. We decided to pursue the route that involved a court order for the retrieval of specific property, leveraging its status as evidence of financial misconduct within the larger legal battle. It required convincing a judge that there was sufficient evidence to believe the bracelet was wrongfully taken and was now in the possession of the mistress, and that its recovery was necessary for the case. This was our strategy. Not just asking for the money, but demanding the physical object back. And doing it through a legal process that would involve an official, undeniable retrieval. He would never see it coming. He thought it was hidden, gone, a done deal. He didn't realize I was building a legal mechanism to reach into the mistress's home and reclaim what was mine, using his own actions as the leverage. The weeks that followed were tense. We filed the necessary motions, presented our evidence, waited for the judge's decision. There were more legal maneuvers from his side, trying to block our requests, claiming harassment, invasion of privacy on the part of the mistress. His lawyer argued it was simply a transparent attempt to embarrass him. We countered that it was about recovering stolen property vital to determining the true marital estate and his financial misconduct. The waiting was agony. Had we been clever enough? Was the evidence strong enough? Or had I overplayed my hand, risking a crucial legal setback? I put on a brave face, continued with the other aspects of the divorce proceedings, but this particular play, this specific trap, occupied a large part of my mind. It felt like the linchpin of everything. If this failed, if the court denied our request to retrieve the bracelet, it would be a significant blow, not just legally, but to my spirit. They would have truly gotten away with it. Then came the call from my lawyer. The judge had granted the order. We had the legal right to retrieve the bracelet, not through negotiation, not through a payout, but through a court-ordered recovery. The judge saw the merit in our argument that this specific item, under these circumstances, needed to be secured as evidence. A wave of relief washed over me, quickly followed by a resurgence of that cold, steely resolve. This was it, the moment of truth. We coordinated with the appropriate authorities. Because the order involved retrieving specific property from a third party's residence under potentially contested circumstances, the police would be present to ensure the order was executed peaceably and properly. They weren't there to arrest anyone, unless circumstances changed drastically, but to ensure the legal process of retrieval happened. My lawyer explained the process. We would go to the mistress's address, accompanied by the officers. We would present the court order. The officers would facilitate the retrieval of the specific item. My husband would likely be there, of course. He was likely living there by now. The day arrived, gray and spitting rain. Much like the day I found the text message. I felt strangely calm. The churning anxiety of the past months had settled into a hard knot of anticipation. I dressed carefully, professionally. I wasn't going there to cause a scene or demand an apology. I was going as the plaintiff in a legal case, accompanied by officers of the court, to reclaim stolen property. This was a transaction, a consequence of their actions, executed with legal precision. We drove across town, the city lights blurring through the rain-streaked windows. My lawyer went over the plan one last time. Be calm, be silent unless spoken to directly by the officers or the mistress in a way that required a brief, factual answer. Let the legal process unfold. Do not engage with my husband. Do not engage with the mistress. This was not an emotional confrontation. It was a legal recovery. We pulled up outside the address. It was a pleasant, unassuming house. Lights were on inside. A car I recognized as my husband's was parked in the driveway. My heart rate picked up, a steady drum against my ribs, but my exterior remained serene. We walked up to the door. My lawyer knocked. A moment later, the door opened. My husband stood there, looking surprised, then wary, seeing my lawyer and me. His eyes flicked past us to the two uniformed officers behind us. His face went pale. We have a court order, my lawyer stated, his voice clear and formal, for the retrieval of specific property located at this residence. We require your cooperation. He stumbled backward, mumbling something I couldn't make out. The mistress appeared behind him, curiosity turning to alarm as she saw the police. She was wearing a silk robe, her hair slightly damp, clearly caught off guard. The officers stepped forward, presenting the order. My husband stammered. "What is this? You can't. This is ridiculous." "Sir, we have a court order to retrieve a diamond bracelet believed to be on the premises," one of the officers said, his tone firm but neutral. "We require access to locate and secure it as evidence." My husband started protesting more loudly, demanding to know what was going on, who authorized this. He looked at me, his eyes blazing with a mixture of fury and disbelief. He hadn't anticipated this. Not this. He thought the bracelet was his leverage, his secret weapon of cruelty, safely out of my reach. "Where is the bracelet?" the officer asked again, turning his attention slightly towards the mistress, who looked terrified. My husband started shouting. "It's not here. She doesn't have it. You have no right." But the mistress, her face ashen, pointed a trembling finger towards the side table in the living room. It's there," she whispered, her voice barely audible. We all looked, and there it was, lying on the polished wood, under the soft glow of a lamp. The diamonds winked, oblivious to the human drama unfolding around them. It was real. It was here. And it was about to be mine again. The sight of it, just lying there, so casually in her home, after everything he had done, everything I had been through, a wave of something cold and powerful washed over me. It wasn't triumph, not yet. It was the quiet satisfaction of a trap well laid, of patience finally rewarded. The officer stepped forward. My husband yelled again, a desperate, panicked sound. "No, don't touch that. That's ours." The officer ignored him, reaching for the bracelet. My husband let out that raw, animal scream, full of rage and impotence. He lunged forward as if to stop him, but the other officer gently but firmly blocked his path. The mistress whimpered. The officer picked up the bracelet. Its weight, its sparkle, suddenly felt different. It wasn't just a possession being recovered. It was a piece of evidence being secured, a material witness to betrayal and deceit. The officer placed it carefully into the clear plastic bag. Zipping it shut felt final, definitive. My husband watched, his face contorted, his screaming fading into choked, furious gasps. He understood now. This wasn't just me fighting him in divorce court. This was me using the full force of the law, not just to reclaim my property, but to create undeniable proof of his actions in the most public, humiliating way possible. He had given away something valuable and personal to hurt me, thinking it was a safe move. He never imagined I would turn that specific act into a legal liability that would bring the police to his mistress's door to retrieve it as evidence of his potential misconduct. He was blindsided because he thought asset division was a paper-pushing exercise. He never expected physical recovery of an object to be weaponized this way. He had played a cruel game, and I had changed the rules, bringing the game right into his new sanctuary. His lawyer must have told him to expect discovery, financial investigation. But this was a level of focused legal counterattack he hadn't anticipated. The bracelet wasn't just gone from his life. It was now official, undeniable proof in the legal system of what he had done. The officers documented the retrieval, had the mistress sign something acknowledging she had surrendered the property. My lawyer took possession of the bagged bracelet, logging it into evidence. The air was thick with unspoken resentments and the lingering echoes of my husband's scream. There was nothing left to say. My lawyer and I turned and walked out, leaving him standing there, shattered and furious, in the doorway of his mistress's house, the symbol of his cruel gesture now firmly in the hands of my legal team. The blue lights still pulsed outside, quiet sentinels in the rain. The legal case shifted dramatically after that day. The retrieved bracelet became a central piece of evidence. It wasn't just its value, it was the context of its taking and giving that mattered. It supported our claims of fraudulent asset dissipation and financial misconduct, painting a clear picture for the judge of his deceitful behavior during the marriage and the divorce proceedings. His credibility was severely damaged. His attempts to portray himself as a reasonable party in the divorce fell apart under the weight of this one glittering, undeniable fact. The settlement negotiation changed tune. His side was no longer aggressive, no longer trying to hide assets or lowball me. They were defensive, trying to mitigate the damage from the retrieved evidence. The value of the bracelet, of course, was factored into the final settlement, but its recovery did more than just recoup its financial worth. It gave me immense leverage. It proved my assertions about his dishonesty. It exposed his actions not just as marital infidelity, but as calculated, harmful conduct. The final settlement was significantly more favorable to me than anything he had initially proposed. More than just the financial terms, there was a sense of vindication that permeated the outcome. It wasn't about winning in the traditional sense of divorce, which always feels like a loss on some level. It was about setting the record straight, about holding him accountable for his specific, cruel acts, and about reclaiming something that was fundamentally mine. The bracelet sits in my safe again. Its velvet box still holds the imprint of its form. Sometimes I take it out. The diamonds still sparkle, just as brightly. But they mean something different now. They are no longer just a symbol of success or independence. They are a symbol of betrayal, yes, but also of resilience, of strategic thinking, and of the quiet, cold power of using the system to turn the tables on someone who thought they were beyond reach. I didn't keep it to wear it as a reminder of pain. I kept it as a reminder of my own strength, of the fact that even when everything seems lost, even when someone tries to steal your power and use it against you, you can find a way to reclaim it. You can build a new strategy, a new kind of fortress, and sometimes, the most satisfying victory is the one that leaves your opponent screaming, blindsided by the consequences of their own actions. The quiet of my home now feels different. Not empty, but
Cleared.
the toxic residue of his presence, of his lies, of his calculated cruelty has been scrubbed away, piece by piece. The bracelet is just one piece. But it is a shining, undeniable piece that proves you can fight back not with anger and emotion, but with cold precision and unwavering resolve. It proved that justice, sometimes, arrives in a police officer's gloved hand, placing stolen property into a clear plastic evidence bag, leaving the betrayer stunned and screaming in the rain. And if you've ever had to reclaim something precious, something lost to betrayal, not just money, but a piece of yourself, I'd love to hear your version. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is. Thanks for being here. Subscribing helps bring more of these stories to life.